I'm going to present my work in the paper titled A User Study on User Attention for an Interactive Content-Based Image Search System. Let me make it full screen. The content-based image retrieval systems normally uses the representation of visual features such as color, shape, and texture. It's already built for users to express more precisely their intents visually, and they can submit the query by example, by sketch, or even using text for annotated images. But in these cases, the content-based image retrieval mainly uses the low-level features for image extraction and retrieval as well. But there are two major challenges in content-based image retrieval. They call the semantic gap and intention gap. In fact, these two gaps are covered under the more general, I would say, terms, which is semantic gap. The semantic gap actually can be seen between the extracted low-level features and the desired high-level semantics, which is where user can recognize and submit their queries. While the intention gap lies between the user's search intent and the imperfect, I would say, imperfect query, which might ambiguous semantics that delivered by query, or due to the inability of the query to express the user intent more precisely. So in this case, the intention gap, I would say, is more difficult to quantify, as it's dependent on subjective human interpretation, because the query where the user looking at is they might have different objects, and they want to submit the query by example, which may contain different objects. So in this case, many different techniques has been proposed. One of the famous technique was proposed called relevance feedback, which essentially refines the original query or modifies the similarity measures. They use like refined or reweighting the top ranked images to train the classifier or train the model. So the user's feedback, they mainly on images or other modality, like maybe document, videos that are provided by the system. We would say although the relevance feedback is introduced in CBIR, but the search result may be still unsatisfactory as the system knows about those top ranked images. But in this paper, we consider something called active learning. It's already it's a machine learning mechanism that already requested or asking the user to label a data instance to train the classifier or the model. The training data here are not selected beforehand, unlike in other machine learning that using relevance feedback at the assessment stage. But the user in this case typically takes actions that enable them to gain more information, which here in this paper, we implement the interface using the model called Bakary model, which has 3 stages. So the active learning mechanism here is already located in Fox formulation stage that can user be engaged in that stage rather than only at assessment stage, which is the final stage of the retrieval system. Here in this category, as I mentioned before, the CBIR interface built based on the Bakary theory. The Bakary model has 3 stages, where the user can initiate the search system and explore the image collection and select the proper query. And later they can select the randomly document or images to initiate the training model rather than on pre-selected pre-selected training samples for the classifier. While in Fox formulation, which the second stage is to user can train the classifier or the model based on the instance that provided by the system. This technical work has been published in different occasions and can be here in this paper. We presented only the user-centric design for this model to see at which stage the user spend or make more attention, especially at the final stage, which I would say post-hoc stage, when they present the results and select and collect or select the desired images. The beneficial of using this Bakary stage model that, as we can see, in pre-focus stage in information retrieval scenarios, once the user select or participants initiate the search, there is broad knowledge that might bring the relevance scores very low. But once the user engage in search loop or training model, at the end of the retrieval stages, the user will find the specific knowledge about the topic, about the selected images or the desired images, which I would say will find high useful images or utility levels. Like this interface will enable the user to engage in the query formulation stage, which I would say like a query learning model. This study built to observe which interface that attracts more attention. We used two biosensors, which we call the eye tracker and GSR sensor. The system built based on general, for general applications, we're using query by example in this case. The extractions, the visual feature extracted for interactive active learning model. And we don't use browsing or clustering in this study. We only targeted image to select on top ranked 20 images. This user interfaces here, you can see the left-hand side is the search strategy interface. This is built based on the active learning. So the user engage in active learning to allocate or labels the selected images to train the model. While the second right-hand side is information goal interface. This is built based on relevance feedback to refine the images at the assessment stage. We only consider one baseline system in this study because this is only two mechanism has been found in the literature, only relevance feedback, and we can say active learning mechanism to engage user to train the classifier or to train the model. The experimental setup here, we are conducting a UX lab. The aim of the experiment was to find out at which stage the user's attention was high through the collection or and by analyzing the eye gaze activities or movement and the galvanic skin response to capture the emotion arousal. This both biosensors, the output metrics can be found in this table. The fixation and time spent was recorded and captured to find where more attention spent by participants. And the GSR use it to collect the peak detection for emotional arousal. The experimental design can be seen in this bottom. The connected biosensors and the stimuli is recorded on the two screens, where the participants can engage in the search loop, while the eye motion software platform recorded the whole actions before to get analyzed afterwards. Here is the experimental design. We put this two different tasks to investigate effectively the effects of the user interactions with the interfaces. Especially for the search strategy interface that built on 3 stages, as users paid a certain attention when examined the search results. So we need to measure them where can find the more attention when the user engage in active learning or engage in relevance feedback at assessment stage. That means the relevance feedback, many different models, especially satisfaction model, examining model, has been presented in different applications, but that might be not that the case where user find the top ranked image satisfied and train the system based on that top ranked images, which might not has high relevance score, or as the system knows about these selected images. The amount of user intention here should be like helps us to differentiate in which interface or system the result potentially meet the user needs. As we need to obtain an evidence from the post-box stage, which is like a result assessment of what influences the user attention behavior when they contribute in all search aspects. We also need to visualize the user's gaze path, such as heat maps and fixation patterns, along the explicit feedback, which we here consider the post questionnaires. In separate include stimuli to the task at hand. For this study, we recruit, I think I would say 12 participants to a mailing, and 9 postgraduate students and 3 undergraduate students. This comprised 8 females and 8 males. Only 8 participants had adequate technical knowledge about this search system design and information retrieval systems. All participants were familiar only with text-based search. Here, each of those our participants performed 2 exploratory searches, as may is presented in this table. And I would summarize what kind of the task is. The first task is to create food menu that has a diversity of range of food or range of meals. The other task is to create lighting leaflet, which I would say like a chandelier, like a diversity of chandelier leaflet to meet different customer costs and budget or requirements. So this is to those 2 tasks was performed not in sequence, but each task has followed by a post task questionnaire, and those 2 tasks in each one in different stimuli, and those stimuli has included the questionnaire stimuli. Now to perform the 2 different tasks, just to answer 2 different questions. The first question is, to what extent can user engagement in query formulation can improve the user involvement during post-box stage? What I mean by post-box stage is a result assessment stage. And the second question is that, to what extent can user engagement in focus formulation stage affect user perceptions, which can be collected by the questionnaire stimuli. Here, we're going to analyze to present the results. First, to quantify the visual attention at both individual and aggregated level. What I mean by individual is each participant has to record the data and export the data from the iMotion software. After the engage, we first aggregate multiple dynamic events in the recorded videos or in recorded video stimuli, because we make 2 stimuli for each task, for each system. So within the recording sensor, both sensors are GSR and eye tracker. We create a scene as a segment. The segment was defined as fixed size allocated manually along the timeline for each participant to make the correlation between all participants. The created scenes later treated as a static stimuli at the individual level. This figure illustrates customized heat maps, indicates the most heat-focused elements where the image results presented. If you can see in a search study interface, the most heat maps can be clearly seen. If this is the query image and the most heat, this is randomly selected from individual participants. But we can see the participants selected the image that has similar background, but may have different shapes or different texture. The figure is this indicates the most heat map elements, and more attention can be observed on this search strategy interface, which means more images were selected, unlike the attention rate on IG interface. Let's go. I'm going to move now to area of interest. This is areas of interest created by iMotion software. The figure illustrates the customize here or quantify the visual attention on the result panel. The heat maps indicate the highlighted where the participant attention was more focused. So this is can be like the time spent and the fixation counts. Now to find the gaze path activity, which is at some points very important for text-based search, but even here it's more likely to be important because it's at individual levels can be observed the duration of fixations on both interfaces. The circle size here indicates the fixation time, where the radius increases with longer fixations. Now to find the significant differences between the accountable time spent on recorded data, we use Mahmoud U-test on both data recorded on both screens or both interfaces. The significant differences between the amount of time spent in AOI based raw data here for both interfaces can be clearly seen in this figure. So the significant time spent is really high on search strategy. This might be not the case when this study consider the tools used. They might time spent on use in tools or selected tools that mean may make more time complexity or tools complexity used. But when selected images, that mean the image attributes can attract user to which meet their leaflet design or food menu for the task at hand. Even similarly here, the total can be seen in this figure. The total time spent in area of interest of all participant fixations, excluding the data points between fixations, were significant higher at the result of the CSS than the IG interface. At the bottom figure, we can find the number of fixations actually recorded inside the area of interest of the result panels using both interface IG and search strategy interfaces. The fixation count on search strategy interface can be seen or distributed with higher scores than the IG result. The higher the amount means the amount of total fixation counted inside area of interest. That means more time a participant spent on a specific area of interest with high interest. To report as we see the second question, to answer the second questions, to report the participant perceptions, we aggregated and exported the survey data for each participant from the stimuli of a 5-like scale. The 5-like scale has the ranges can be seen on the bottom. We will move later. This figure shows the average of 4 elements of users' perceptions during the second task only that performed on both interfaces, the IG and SS interface. But we can see the search strategy interface outperforms the IG interface. This including the task performance, the way user handling the task, and the number of relevant images retrieved, and the overall user satisfaction rate. At the bottom, this figure shows the individual heat maps over the post-task questionnaires. It highlights actually the benefit of using eye tracker data, which can complement the survey stimuli evaluation. This is the survey stimuli evaluation of 5-like scale. But as the participant attention focuses more on the area that this area may receive a high number of mouse clicks. As we can see here in this bar is the search strategy questionnaires. So the 5-like scale, that means high satisfaction rate. On the left-hand side is the questionnaires for the IG interface, which low level or low rate of satisfaction rates. I want to conclude my work in this paper. We're using two different biosensors to record the data. The eye tracker using to record the time spent and fixations, while the GSR recorded to use it to record the arousal for arousal purposes. We aggregate the data for from eye tracking, and that to find which at which stage the user can spend more time or can more attract the user attention, especially at assessment stage, which is the final stage of retrieval, while the user participate, whether participate or engage in focus formulation stage using active learning, or participate only at the final stage, which assessment stage, using relevance feedback. So the comparison can be found in the use, can be seen and can be presented by the eye tracking data, which aggregated heat maps and gaze fixations was actually noticeably higher at the final stage of search strategy interface rather than using a IG interface when it's considered. I would say at the final stage, we find the eye gaze movement or patterns can complement the survey stimuli evaluation for user satisfaction. But in this, there is some limitation for this work, as the GSR, we haven't combined the GSR data with eye tracking. We're looking to investigate more data from the GSR data, that we can aggregate the both data specials to find the better way to using or presenting like a better way for content-based image retrieval system design. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.